groups. One of my favorite moments over the years with one of our guys was he was in grade 12, and he said his biggest problem in life was that no other kids at school had social skills training. And I love that comment because he's getting all these rules and all these boundaries and all these things to learn. No other kids at the school had it, and that was the biggest problem. It wasn't necessarily his social skills, it was everybody else's. Pull this up. Beautiful. I never asked. Just slide there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about AAFS. Some of our innovative programs, mostly, I'm going to tell a little bit of our story and some of what's going on now at AAFS. Because for me, when we were putting together this conference and symposium, the big piece for me was innovation and who's doing what. So we didn't, we knew we weren't going to have an ABA therapist up here because that's been well documented and well out there. So I love where everything is coming from this week, the last 2 days so far. I couldn't imagine when we started last 20 years ago, a room like this with people talking about listen to your autistic folks and all the things we're talking, gender identification. And I picture that 20 years ago and where we'd be now. So I'm really excited to see where not just the autism sector, but where the world is going with everything. So that's that, and tell some people about me. One of the big learning moments in my life, I remember we moved across the city when I was a kid. My mom, I was really nervous first day of school, and my mom mentioned to me, just they said, remember what it's like to be the new kid and keep that with you. To talk a little more about my mother, she was also the one that I don't think gets credit for starting the resource room in the schools, but she was the teacher in the staff room. Here's a teacher talking about a kid, and she said, send it to my class, I'll take them. And then in 1994, she won an academic award with Dr. Larry Cates for innovative learning. I think it was an online learning project in the early 90s. So also to talk about some of the work Larry's done over the years. So when Homa came to me and said, oh, I found this professor and said, Larry, I was like, oh, wow, that's like how serendipitous and how it meant to be after all those years working with my mom, who was one of my large inspirations. So started with my mom. I took a job at a St. Junior High School with 2 boys with autism against my will. I wanted to work with behavior kids. I wanted to work with problem kids. That was me when I was a kid. I had too much energy. No impulse control, a lot of those things. My mom worked at a school, St. Helena, and she had some health issues, and that would be a service to her if I worked at the same school. So, okay, I'll go work with these kids. One of the first moments in my classroom, before I'd met the 2 boys, the teacher came up to me and gave me 2 coloring books. This is grade 7, and she said, here, these should keep your 2 guys busy while they're in my class. I knew nothing about autism. I knew nothing about anything, but I was pretty sure there weren't many 12-year-olds being sent to junior high school to be given coloring books while they're in a classroom. She also mentioned to me, I don't know if I have it on there, to watch out for the 2 mothers. They're problem parents. I learned very fast, I need problem parents in my life. Problem parents are the ones that get things done. I learned very quickly, and I don't know anybody in Calgary, Nancy Belanger and Kathy Frio are the 2 ladies that helped reinvigorate and start Autism Calgary back in the mid to late 80s. They were a huge part of AAFS starting. They were the ones that said, adults a little later, don't go and do this on your own. Let's do AAFS, let's do this program. We have to start something because what we're doing is special. And so that led to a conversation in between some of those problem parents and where we got to say starting AAFS. I almost got ABA certified. I helped start a sort of discrete trial, very stringent one-to-one therapy program called Class Act with a great lady who's very smart. I worked at morning wake-ups every day at Margaret House for 6 years. I'd leave morning wake-ups, go to the residential program. I would go, or the early intervention program. I worked 2 to 3 overnight shifts per week, which at first were just for money and to start writing bylaws and stuff for the organization I wanted to start. But those overnight shifts, I learned so much with those kids at 1 o'clock in the morning when they'd wake up. And I threw myself into everything. I quit working for the school board and I became sort of a half-time consultant. And I'd go into classrooms, and typically every consultation would end with the teacher asking questions about, well, Aaron likes to get up and bounce around, and what if he's doing that and other kids want to do it? Let him do it. Take a class body break. Anything I'm telling you for your student with the autistic student, it's going to help or be supportive with every other student in your classroom. And don't just make it about that student. Make it about the students, the classroom, the community. So we simply said, let's get this. So after my therapy world, and I realized I was not a good one-to-one therapist. I know when I worked at Discovery Center at STA, they're happy to see me, but the kids were happy because usually that meant we were going to have some fun. Because I didn't want to sit at a desk and do pictures and stuff like that with them. I realized that there's a boy I knew that had done that with money for 7 years, still didn't know what a quarter was. One week of going to McDonald's every day for breakfast, he could count money, make change, started working the school concession. He couldn't learn sitting at a desk. And so for me, it's very key to see how they learn through experience and how the folks I was working with learned. Stuff. So in 2004, we had a group of families that said, we want to start an organization based on what you're doing. And I said, well, what is that? I had no experience in autism. I was an athlete growing up. I took a lot of leadership development. David Lake, who's here some of the weekend, was one of my big mentors, even though I had one part-time class with him. Even all these years later, I sit in an advisory committee with him, and I'm still in awe of everything he does and how he supports people that need support. So we saw that what I saw both through my private respite and all my work in all the organizations is these kids had that much free time in their life. The times at school and other times in life where kids were given a break and given a chance to sort of be kids and let loose energy, those were the most stressful for my kids. Recess and lunch hour weren't good times for my kids. And they didn't have that time. Then they'd leave school, typically go to a speech, something after school, which is incredibly valuable. But how many people here, if I said, what are you going to do this afternoon after this conference, after your whole 2 days of scheduling, are going to go they go from doctor to doctor to doctor to classroom, unsuccessful, no time to just be kids. So our simple goal was, let's get kids together and very specifically not do therapy. And part of that, I remember talking with Tom Collins, the former president of SNEV, at a golf tournament. And he'd known about AAFS, and we talked about it, and we got along really well. And he finally said, just tell me what AAFS is. And we were at the golf course, and I said, oh, it's the golf course. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, if you lived on the driving range, hit balls every day, went to the putting green, went to the chair, had Tiger Woods as your golf coach or his coach as your golf coach, you would never be a good golfer until you went to the golf course. Hit it in the sand, hit it in the water, had your friend throw something at you when you're in your backswing. Without the golf course, and I saw a lot of kids, the incredible speech therapy they're getting, all the help they're getting in their lives, all the support they had was only support. They had nowhere to actually go and apply those principles. And we tell kids, and to fail a little bit. So, and Dan Pallotta, I talked to somebody about him yesterday. He wrote a book called Uncharitable, but he spoke in Calgary a few years ago, and he has a lot of great writings. But one of his quotes he'd said was, if you'd never been told no, you're not really as innovative as you think you are. And so for me, for years, it's always been what makes AAFS innovative, what makes AAFS who we are. And part of that, I thought, when I heard this go, I'm like, oh, good. When we started AAFS, I didn't want to start a nonprofit at age 29, a year and a half into post-secondary after going back. I wanted to go to school, and I wanted to be an OT. I wanted to do a lot of things. Reality was, I went to different areas, different organizations I'd worked for years, different organizations I knew in the city for autism, recreation, had a simple program that stated, the primary focus of this program is the social side. It was the only thing I'd seen across, I don't know how many hundreds of kids I'd known over the years. And we all know that you meet one person, you've met one person. The only common thing was something socially. Obviously different between each kid, but yet every kid I knew maybe had something recreation-wise written in their program. You aggressed in the morning, nope, you can't go swimming. You did this, nope, you lose your board game night. No, you can't go to your friend's house, they don't want you there, you're too interruptive. And all their recreation and social was not recreation and social, it was a carrot. And so that can't be a carrot for anybody, especially for our kids. I mean, I can't imagine if somebody went to, oh, Kim's not here, and said, oh, Kim, you can't dance until you complete A, B, C, D, E, F. Well, I don't know Kim incredibly well, other than me, but I'm guessing that without dance, Kim can't get to A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we all have those things in our life. And these kids didn't have that. They were very much, we talk about masking all week, identity, they have no idea who they are. I was so enthralled when Courtney talked about exploring individuals' autism with them. Because for me, that's one thing, we tell all these kids you're autistic, and then you're going to this doctor, then you're in the special class. But how many people have sat down with any kid at any level upon diagnosis and went through either with the parents or the kid what autism is? What does that mean? How is it going to affect you? What are your friends going to think? What are your people? All those pieces that we sort of assume. The other part for me is that play is a primary, indeed a primal way that we learn to understand and experience the world around us. And I wasn't seeing the opportunity for these kids to play. And playing with blocks with a therapist in front of a two-way mirror is not play. That's therapy. You have to be able to play with a friend who can make mistakes you can get upset with. They can get upset with you. You have a give and take. And I was told early on in autism, 25 years ago, well, the autistic brain doesn't think like that. I said something, I can't be live streamed because I swear, and I was just going to swear. So those are two big quotes that really stick with me and I carry with me. Where are we here? So I'm going to go through some of our programs. And I'll talk a little bit more, but our programs are incredibly innovative. We don't think, because a 10-year-old kid says, I want to learn how to make movies, find a filmmaker, get 10 kids, teach them how to make movies. I want to learn how to play lacrosse, find some lacrosse players, get a group of kids, go play lacrosse. In our world of what everybody in here does, and believe me, I'm so nervous being here with the academic and research community here, but that can be a really barrier to the social recreation world. When I signed up for hockey as a kid or whatever sport my parents put me in, that's all it was. It wasn't a therapeutic thing for me, but I would not be who I was without all those team sports in my life. And if I would have lost those because of behaviors, my parents learned early, well, geez, if he doesn't skate or do something 4 or 5 times a week, then he's in the principal's office and on a worse path if I didn't stay in sports. Which my early 20s kind of got me to those paths, but I recovered. So we have a couple umbrellas, community outings and clubhouse nights. Those are simple one-offs. So everything became apparent for us early on, and a lot of people talked about it, is giving our kids and our families choice. So if we have activities every Saturday and Sunday throughout the entire year, and Johnny Smith wants to come to one of those, like maybe Heritage Park up on a Christmas, that's all he has to come to. We're not pressuring to sign up here, sign up there. Okay, here's a 2-week block, come every day, 9 a.m., be there off the bus, 3 p.m., bus will be there, you're going home right then. It's an Aaron, my operations manager here, and Brittany, other here. We tell a lot of our new staff, yeah, we do things the hard way, because what I've learned about the world when I went down some of the paths is education and that, is a lot of what we do for kids, and not just our kids, is built to make the adult's life easier. I mean, I have a 6-year-old. I couldn't imagine raising a kid before cell phones or tablets. And I default to that, even though we know sometimes it's bad, but sometimes you have that. But that makes it easier for me. I know it's not good for Max when we do that, and we try not to do it much. And that's a lot of the world that we, especially kids with difference or kids outside, we need sometimes it appears that the full goal is to have the adult's life easier and not actually enrich that youth's life. So as everybody in that therapy world, be sure when you're making those decisions, and I do this a lot with teachers, and sometimes they get upset, is that for you or is that for Johnny? Because what you're doing to Johnny is setting him aside from those other 25 kids, and now those other 25 kids who didn't understand that Johnny was different, now know he's different because you made him different. So that's one thing that's very important to you. So that choice. Unique care programs. So these are the ones that we have different names for, but they fill the gaps in service. So we get a call from a mom on Monday, I have no after school support. Get a call from 2 moms on Tuesday, we don't have any after school support. Wednesday, let's start an after school program. And that goes forward. Ask Fridays is a program we have. We had New Heights Learning Services, which Audrey and Emily talked about. They had noon dismissal. Our office was in their school for strictly autistic students. They were close to our office. A couple parents called and said, can you watch our kids after they get out? Noon dismissal. Yes. Okay, there's 4 parents with that need. How many other parents have that? Ask Fridays, afternoon social outings for kids. So whatever expression we get for need, our first thing is to fill that gap as fast as we can. We are looking in the world more of research and outcomes in those pieces, but my biggest fear over the number of 18 years now we've been running is how much barriers and red tape those will put in front of. We can't wait till November to start a camping program. Camping's only in the summer in Canada, so these kids want to go camping. How do we go camping? Specialized programs. These ones are in a huge growth spurt the last number of years. These are sports, arts, culture, creative, media. So I'll talk a little bit more detail on a few of them, but these are the 8, I guess 5 weeks is the shortest one, but 5 to 24 weeks. Right now, we just started our lacrosse, just started back up. We have a boxing program. Movie making has been going on 12 years. I think there's probably about 500 videos on our YouTube channel, which I'll give you a link for in a moment. And again, some of this comes from expression from youth. I want to learn how to play lacrosse. Awesome. Let's go get you to learn to play lacrosse. So the specialized programs have become a really growth area for us because it gives them a consistency for mom and dad and the youth. So the youth understands, okay, every Tuesday I have lacrosse. I want to be there. I think Ashley was just talking about choices. And again, we do have that conversation with parents all the time. Hey, Aaron, we noticed you signed your son up for every day for the next 3 months. Did he make that choice? No, we're going to be busy. Okay, well, no, he has to make the choice to be here because if he's not here, it's not giving him value. And sometimes that's in play. Maybe dad was a lacrosse player and you really wanted his son to play lacrosse. And we understand that piece of it too. But for us, it really comes down to giving that choice. So one of the things I was working on this last night, talking about recreation, we had a charitable, one of our close partners at a poker tournament last night. I committed to it months ago. David and Courtney popped in with me, so it was great. But AAFS is about program. AAFS is not about programs, it's about culture. And I'm going to point out that Judy and Paula came to visit us the other day. We've known each other for a while through, I don't know, through Larry or for Michael McCreary or something. And one of the things she said after towards the Aaron, which is all we want, is how she felt when she walked in the building and met our people. That's all we want, whether it's a Nintendo or a lacrosse ball or a basketball or a comic book. I was gonna swear again. I don't care. We want the kids together to find a kid like them, find somebody not like them, and have those chances to be social, not to be therapy social, but to be social. So to be that golf course where they've gone to a social skills program, been taught skills. Now I'm going to put those to the test and see if they resonate with me and see if they actually work. Because we can teach all we want, but again, we have no idea if it works until we actually get a chance to try it. So we need these kids to try it without it being the end of the world. We need it to have a natural failure. I think about one of the best moments, one of my favorite moments over the years at AAFS is we had a grade 7 kid, 2 weeks into grade 7, not doing great, bullied, teachers don't like him, all this stuff that happens. All our staff were amazing. We call our frontline staff social experience guides. They're all incredible. They're superheroes. They were doing their best to try and do whatever they could to get this kid out of his, where he was. It's video games night. Come on, play video games. Here, we got your favorite game. What game do you want to play? Your turn, all this stuff. Didn't want any of it. You know what it was? And talk about his mentoring, a grade 10 kid that from AAFS that walked by him. Junior high sucks. Boom, night turned around. It wasn't therapy. There's nothing that was going to turn that except him being identified with somebody else that had been there and said, you're right, school sucks. And how many adults in the room have ever said to a kid, you're right, school sucks? Any of us? I have, but it's one of those things where you need the peer, the mentor, somebody who's been there. And I didn't have planned to talk, where does this go? So we'll go here first. Top 4 reported outcomes that we get from over the years. And we're working with Homa and Larry on sort of, again, better outcome measurement, but they'll learn if they haven't done, I'm very stringent that it cannot disrupt our environment. And that's been the hardest thing for us. So I believe I can be more independent in other parts of my life. I think you guys also had something similar to that with home-based. I'm more willing to try new things. I made some new friends and I get to be autistic. Another one, we had a 12-year-old who hadn't been told he had autism. His mom was very nervous about their different culture, very nervous about telling him he had autism, but wanted to come to AAFS, didn't have any friends, needed time. So he came to AAFS and his mom picks him up and she goes, is it okay? And he burst through the door, Mom, I have autism. He was so happy. And his mom's like, just what? And she's like, and is that okay? Yeah, all these other people have it too. He was so excited. Not just that he met these people with that had autism also, but he had some understanding of what was happening with him at school with different barriers in his life. And we love moments like that. That's really that. I want to talk a little bit about one program that somebody asked a question. We have what's called an intentional mentorship program. So again, this talks again to some of the innovation that we look to create. Years ago, Anton, if you're in Calgary, you probably know Anton. But he was a young guy in the program, not fully verbal, good young guy, natural leader. Kids fluctuate to him like crazy. Not just autistic kids. My 6-year-old favorite person in the world is Anton. My wife And so the guys online I'll talk to, they know when I was met a new girl, I'd bring her by AAFS, an activity or by the clubhouse, and that was sort of going to judge our future. So my current wife, my only wife, I shouldn't say current, that doesn't sound right. My only wife, Michelle, I brought her out to a Hitman game, Anton, and as Anton does, he doesn't ask for consent. He's learning to ask for consent for hugs, but he's the best hugger in the world, so you'll never turn it down. Ran up, threw his arms around her, big hug. Another kid came over and asked her birthday and told her birthday date and told her how old she was. They walked away, and she turned and she goes, "He is more full of love than anybody I've ever met in my life. This is going to work." Well, Anton was one of those kids, natural leader. So we had said, how do we get him on a path to work here? He wanted to work at the Flames, the Saddle Dome, which he now does years later. But Anton, you want to work here? And then it was a kid from AAFS that won 2 tickets to a Flames game. And we asked him, well, who do you want to take? Who do you want to take you? And he wasn't fully verbal. One of our staff had mom, dad, brother, I want Anton. And so the mom said, well, can Anton take him to a game? Yeah, why not? So Anton did his first shift with him. I went to the Dome also to be in the Dome for Anton. And that's sort of Anton's path on what we now call the Intentional Mentorship Program. So we see youth on our programs with a natural innate ability, either to lead people, for people come to them. And so right now we have some other members going through. They start as a volunteer, they come to programs, they learn the difference between being a worker on a program or a staff member or a volunteer compared to a member. So as a member, we go to movie theaters, we make our choices at the movie theaters with the kids, which sometimes throws new staff for a loop because we didn't just say you're watching SpongeBob at 2:00. We give them choice. If you're a staff member and you're transitioning into that role, it's hard to maybe understand, I don't get to choose. It's that guy's choice. It's these 3 people's choice. So learning how it works to be a mentor. All of our staff are different. We have the event staff over the years. We don't expect to do log notes. Maybe we'll partner them up and we can get some log notes from them. But that key, and I put the comment for Ashley about rapport, because for us, that's where it starts. And we've told staff over the years that, they'll see me with kids and I'll be sarcastic and give them a shot in the belly and they'll tackle me and rub my head and noogie. They can't go do that with that guy. They've just met him. So there's a path when you meet anybody. So the mentorship program sort of teaches all that with the eye for them becoming staff. At one point before the pandemic, we were just over 25% of our staff being autistic, working in programs. Right now, we don't know where we are because we're recalling staff, hiring staff and that, but you have goals to get back to that because again, one of our biggest visions is for me not to be there. Our staff, that we want our youth to go on to these social opportunities by themselves. So one of my favorite moments every year when I go to the Saddle Dome is bumping into former members. Hey, Noah, Will, how are you guys doing? What are you doing here? Oh, we got tickets and we're at the game. Awesome. I remember 4 years ago when you couldn't get on the C train. In our first, so I'll go Anton's first hockey game, he lasted not even to the puck drop because the noise and the ambience and the atmosphere. But number of trips, thanks to kids up front who we supported last night with poker, we had free tickets. So we went again, get to the first period. Let's go sit in the seats on the intermission break when the concourse is crowded, seats are empty. There's lights. 5 minutes. Now start to make that exchange with Anton. So can you put up with this to get the experience? I can. So very early, he ran to the camera set, kept bank of cameras. I want to be a cameraman for the Flames. And how many people in his life do you think supported that? Not many, because Anton wasn't going to graduate high school. He wasn't going to drive. He wasn't going to go to college. BS. He's done all of those. So that idea that experience and that little pieces, little victories. So the mentorship program is going strong, and we'd love to talk to anybody about it because we are looking to grow it now over the next little while, thanks to a new partnership with Ready, Willing, and Able, which is a great organization here, nationwide. But I'm going to talk about a movie project. So this is one of those where in 2008, little guy came to us and he said, I want to learn how to make movies and not about autism. What do you mean? He said, well, we've done some filmmaking, but it was always Augustus Bowl. Anybody? Theater of the Oppressed. So it's a great form of theater where to make social change, social justice. So you identify as a community, you do some games and identification. You create either a theater piece or a movie to make a difference, make change. That's all he'd done. He wanted to make monster movies, and that's our first movie poster. Actually, that's him. That's Danny. I just reconnected. Oh my God, I'm going to go off on how big all those kids are now. Ambulance Control is our first movie. This one's on set. You can see one of the guys tied to a green wall with a green screen as he was going to be tortured in the movie. I can't show you any of our feature movies. I have a QR code for the Movie Project YouTube channel and the link. And Christian right now, if he hasn't already, is probably putting it in the chat for everybody. But now let's see if I can play this video. This is a 1-minute video, one skit for one of our members. It's one of my favorites, so I like showing it.
Welcome to Invisible University. Here's a statue of our founder. As you can see, there are many children here. Thirsty? Have a drink through the water fountain. It's like kissing your mom. Here, you can talk with one of our informative faculty members. Here are all of our sports trophies. Here we have one of our busiest hallways. Our winter theater at the park is a huge success. Geography is my favorite class. Sorry. It's Mister. I'm gonna get picked. As you can see, we have these lockers for all of your needs, whether that be books, video games, or kids. Here we have the cafeteria. Sorry. Here's for some reason couples like to hang out here. Join Invisible University today!
So that program started as a 12-year program. We made one movie. We have short skit programs, stop animation programs. I was going to put one of Zane's video, but you'll get once you're on AAFS YouTube channel, which everybody will go and subscribe, you're going to see ZS Films. That's Zane Selischek. His story is great. He would make these trophies out of Connects and then put them away. And then finally he made them, showed people them, got him to put them on display. Now, years later, he's got a full stop motion animated series called Vial of Terror. He's got some of these videos up over 1,000 views. He's become a great marketer. If he was here, he'd be passing out business cards to everybody. And he would, the best thing about him, and I said he has this way over me, is he gives you his business card. He says, QR code's there, get your phone, okay, subscribe. And he makes sure that he gets a subscriber every time he gives a card away. There's a podcast club right now. Podcast club is being ran by one of our intentional mentors from years ago, Liam. I had a story about him in here, but I had billions of stories. But he's a guy now that we're looking at. He was one of a couple of our guys were our first recalls after the pandemic. But he is one of those guys that kids and parents both just like. I'll get an email from a parent and say, Liam McGinnis. I'm like, I know what it's about. It's about how amazing a human Liam McGinnis is. So I'm going to show one of our sports program videos, just a quick minute of it. This is our boxing video. This one's important because boxing came to us a little bit different way. It wasn't necessarily a member expression. There's a famous boxer in Scotland, Liam Smith, who has a sister with autism. He contacted a local boxer. He's friends with Angelo Habib, who lives in Calgary, and was talking about boxing. Angelo, I don't remember exactly how he met Angelo, but had a real passion to want to do this and teach him. He's probably going to be world champion one day, but he also run his boxing camp at his gym now because I think he's off training mostly. But we had one of our staff, who's not even a movie project, make this video with some of our youths.
Round one, fight! Tonight, we are going to witness the most anticipated match in history for the heavyweight championship of the world. Are you ready?
Off that bullshit, man. Get with that bullshit, man. You know how we do gas.
Round one, fight!
It's about 5 minutes long, so I don't want to put the one, but you can see for us, and we've had folks say, well, my kid has enough aggression. Why do we want a box? Because would you rather hit that heavy bag than you? And we have some moms who have signed him up who had aggression issues in the house that now through some of the boxing and MMA that they're doing, they have that release point for some of their aggression. I mean, all of us still get mad sometimes, but so I'm going to quickly talk about our latest innovation. And this for me demonstrates the way that AAFS thinks, and for me, some of the way my brain thinks. So starting the pandemic, we had a meeting day one. It might have been before the official shutdown with all of our people, our coordinators talked about what we have to do operations wise. We also said, okay, every program you have, how can it work virtually? Through another world, we were invited to a comedy show with Michael McCreary, who's a close friend of ours. Comics not otherwise specified. Look them up and listen to their podcast. We sort of started that at the start of the pandemic, but we ran found the software, said the idea of Remo, which is the room we're also in, is you have 200 people in a room, you can have smaller tables. And I know for me early on in the pandemic, I jumped on Zoom with more than 4 people. I logged right off and I still kind of do that because it's pointless. You spend half the meeting with pauses because nobody knows who's talking. The other half, people are cutting each other off. You can't have a successful sort of conversation with more than, in my word, me anyway, so I'm not saying everybody else, but with more than 4 or 5 people on a screen at one time. But Remo allows you to move to tables, and we thought, geez, this might work for some programs. So we used it for some programs. It worked okay. It's not the friendliest for tablets and something like that, so there's some accessibility things. Sneeve gave us a bunch of Chromebooks early on too to say maybe this will help. So we had a lending library for families. Fast forward to Stampede 2020, kids up front, again, they come up a lot. They asked me, they're like, hey, Dean, that software, do you think it helps us do like a pancake breakfast, like an event for us? We'll maybe pay you guys for it. No, I can't. I'm so busy, the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. I can't. And then Nikki knows as well. She called Anton and said, hey, Anton, do you think you could help us run an event for us? Because Anton is usually, he's only not here because he's at Beer Fest. He's usually right beside me. He said, yes, we can do that. So we ran a Stampede breakfast through Remo on our platform for our kids up front. Went well. Out of that event, we got 2 requests for another event. Those events got requests for other events. So we officially formed a company. It's Connection, as you said, Connection Virtual Events. Now we're going to we've taken out the virtual because now this is our first official hybrid event. We've done a couple with the Healthy Aging Symposium where they were in person in Sweden. We ran the hybrid thing. We're nearing 100 events. And a lot of people, I say this because a lot of people assume, well, you run events for the Sneeve Foundation and Kids Up Front. No, St. John, Nova Scotia, Newcomer Center, workplace inclusion forums for Immigration Partnership with Bow Valley, Kids Sport Canada. We're doing an 8-part series on diversity and inclusion in sport. And the Newcomers event from St. John, we got that event from a group that called us after being at one of our events and said, we've used Remo twice with other people and it was horrible. We want you guys to run an event for us. And it's not me. So I was going to see if Owen and Scott want to pop up because they're here. I want to say thank you to them. These are some of our custom floor plans. So we can design. So this is that one was for World Autism. We're going to stay in Calgary last year, copied after Olympic Plaza. So Owen and Scott are part of the team. Say hello, guys.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry, I just have to turn on my mic. So hello, everyone, as well. Sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
It's okay. Yeah, as Dean.
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, as Dean explained, this is much better than like just a Zoom call if you have like a bunch of people on at once. A Zoom has its place and it's great in itself, but this is a much better, more respectful of how social interactions usually happen in real life. And you go from table to table. You're not going to be tuning into every conversation at once. Sometimes you want to focus on one, not the other. So it's definitely an improvement for all things considered.
And I want to put out today's event because there's been a couple big things the last few weeks. Is these guys have known me, I don't know, since 1950. Guys, they still hang out with me. But there's the assumption from people that, hey, you run it and they're just there. I'm like, no, I've been here this whole weekend. They've been running. I've been here helping demo with some of the controls. I missed a couple demos last week for an event, and Owen and Anton handled them themselves. So this is a plug for anybody out there, because one thing I do when I hear anybody talk about employment, my first question is, well, how many people do you employ? So if you're looking for an event, and I just went, there's a local group who wasn't going to pay us because they're autism, we're autism. And we had sat down and said, no, you have in your mission, you pay autistic people and find them work, you're paying us, or we're not running it. We also told somebody else, go get a $20 Zoom membership. You don't want an event, you want a meeting. So if you have events, trade shows, job fairs, the hybrid events that need a hybrid portion, this is your team. We're looking to build it up higher and higher. And for us, when we started it, Owen, is this a charity that we're running?
No, it is
No.
a for-profit out of the minds of AAFS and all of us.
Yes. So I think that's all I have to say. We can. Or no.
He's up here. We're also all going to be chatting fairly quickly here. So, and oh yeah, Jonathan. Is there a microphone? Yeah. Dean's the microphone guy, so if he's up here, he's not back there.
Thanks, Dean, for the great sampling of the different kind of activities, the different kinds of content. It makes total sense to me, because why would you ever have, all of your eggs in one content basket? Because we don't do that with anybody else. Everybody deserves to sample things and figure out what's right for them. You had a slide on there with 4 different kind of take-homes points that you said, like, this is what the outcomes are, right? And then you also said, like, wonder if research is going to be a barrier to things. And I thought to myself, you already know what you want to measure, right? And I really wonder, like, if you went back to those 4 things, if you said, I want to measure that in all of the content across it all, like trans content, just as part of, like, have you thought about weaving, I guess the question is, have you thought about weaving in some measurement pieces as like standard operating procedure, so that no matter what you do, it's like at this point, like, is that part of the process, or do you want that to be?
It has. We have somewhere stacks of forums. Our capacity is good now, but one of my failings in not being either an MBA or an academic or a researcher in the start was just, if we can have 50 kids getting help, then we want 50 kids getting help. So right now we have stacks. That's kind of how we found HOMA, and why the My Tax project matched us so well, because now it was somebody who could come and possibly mine that data, give us new data, take the forums. So that's where we are going. But again, there's my limitation. My brain has always seen that as a barrier or stopgap between getting more programs out there. But yes, definitely, yeah, we are on that path, and HOMA and Larry are going to be a big part of that.
That's great. I think that data, and it sounds like you've got so many people engaged, so many members engaged in so many activities, that you're getting to the point that, where you could probably be talking about big data, that the messages aren't going to come across in any one specific program, but that the real message is going to be what you can see from 10,000 miles up, like the big picture view of what's happening.
Well, and I see all this weekend. Thank you so much, Jonathan. The information that people have, and the brainwaves and all those things. It's so amazing to me to be able to have that. And I saw some slides, some people, we can just look up that study and get that on. So no, thank you for that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Dean. I've been really appreciative since I joined CNEV in September of 2021. So I've known Dean for about 8 months, and I think it was my second day. Is it your admin, Nancy or Wendy? Nancy emails me, of all people, and is like, hey, this grant application's due Monday. And it was Friday, and I didn't know what I was doing, but we made it happen. And I think like that is a trickle down effect of what we like to say about Dean. And I'm looking at Shane because he was the one who said this, is Dean says yes and figures it out later. And I just think that is a really, that approach is what has generated so much success in AAFS, along with all of your other philosophies. So yeah. So because we ran out of a bit of time this morning, I'm actually going to welcome Homa to the stage. She was the one who sat on the panel and